Well, good morning, everybody. Welcome to our latest edition of Morning Coffee and Photoshop Tips. My name is Matt Kloskowski. It is very good to have all you guys along with me this morning. I hope you grabbed your cup of coffee in your Buccaneers World Championship mug, of course. Everybody should have one, right? So if you haven't joined in on one of these before, this is where I basically give you some morning Photoshop tips while we drink some coffee. You don't have to drink coffee. For some places that are watching this right now, it is probably too late to be drinking coffee. So it could be tea, it could be water, it could be, heck, I don't care if it's bourbon. I'm a little bit jealous if that's the case. But anyway, letting everybody join in here. So got some Photoshop tips for you today. We are going to focus a little bit on some wildlife tips. So I've had a few wildlife photo shoots lately. I got one of the new Sony A1 cameras, and I've been really putting that through some tests. So I've been out shooting quite a bit more than I usually get out to shoot. And then I'm also working on a wildlife photo editing course. So I went out to my email community and I asked people to send me some of their wildlife photos that they were having trouble with. So I got over 4,000 photos. I obviously can't use 4,000 photos in the course, but there's just so many good photos in there and so many good ideas and tips and tricks and all those things that I'm going to share some of them as we as I lead up to the course here, and just so many things that we can do to help improve wildlife photos. So let's go ahead. Looks like we got a good group here, and we'll go ahead and get going. So somebody said I got my morning coffee in my official Waffle House mug. I haven't been to a Waffle House in so long. I miss Waffle House. So good. Okay, let's get going here. I'll share my screen with you guys, and where do we go? So there we go. Let's share the screen. And let's take a look. So I'll start off with one. This is one that I use all the time on my photos. And by all means, folks, if you see me using a bird photo, it doesn't mean it's limited to a bird photo. There's so many different things you could use for this. But I use this all the time on my photos where I swap eyes. Okay, or not necessarily swap eyes, but maybe borrow an eye from either the same photo or from a different photo. All right. So in this case here, we've got these two birds, and you can see we've got one nice sharp eye here, nice catch light in it, and then the other one, just maybe because of the way its head is turned and whatnot, not so much as much in that eye. Okay. And this could also be if you've got two animals in the same frame and one of them is maybe slightly forward or backward, they might be a little bit out of focus. Now, of course, there's not much you can do with the body, but so many times if the body is still semi in focus and the eye is just a little bit soft, people look at the eye. So that's really what you'd want to make sure is super sharp. So what we can do, we can take any selection tool and then just make a selection of the eye, and then we just do copy paste. So copy paste, these are keyboard shortcuts and commands that are on every computer, in every program, everywhere in the world ever. So copy paste. All right, usually under the edit menu in every program, but learn the keyboard shortcuts: Command C, Command or Control C, and Command or Control V for Victor. And then we will take the move tool right up here, and we're just going to go drag that one right over on there. And bam, we're done. I mean, I think it's spot on. So we'll move on to the next photo here. I'm joking. So obviously we have a little bit of work to do. You've got two ways that you can go with this. If you are of the non-destructive nature, you can use a layer mask to do this. I'll use a layer mask further down the line in a tutorial this morning here. But if you are of the destructive nature, which I don't mind, I work destructively all the time because I know, for me personally, I'll never want to go back and change this. So there would be no reason for me to work non-destructively on something like this. But I can go and take my eraser tool. You can press E for eraser, and it's over here in your toolbox. I can go take my eraser tool. You'd want a nice soft edge brush with it, so hardness all the way down to 0. And then I would just work around the edges like so and erase that away. Yes, I know the non-destructive police are going to come get me. That's okay. They have before. And I'm still here. Believe it or not, my computer has not I just erased something destructively and my computer has not blown up and I have not been arrested. So miracles will never cease. But there you go. So you can see we're just going to pop that sharper eye with a little bit more of a catch light right onto our bird over there. Okay. So that's a technique I use all the time. I mean, that is, to me, that's one of my go-tos quite often. And keep in mind, let's say you've got the same animal in different photos, and one photo the eye is soft. It doesn't mean you couldn't do exactly what I did and make a selection, copy it, and then go over into a different photo and then paste it into the other photo too. That would work just fine. Here you can see we can put that eye right over a little cub there. But anyway, you can copy paste onto it. Obviously have to be the same animal, but you can do that between documents as well. It doesn't have to be inside the same document. Another little tip along the way. So this photo is from Jen Morrison. Jen submitted her photo. I'm actually going to be using this one in my course as well. Jen submitted this photo, and I thought it was just such a cute photo. And along the same lines as that, all right, not exactly the same, but along the same lines, we've got this one up here whose face is a little bit soft. This is depth of field. This is just because of the aperture that was used, and I believe Jen used f10 in this, which is right around what I would use. Don't ever think there's the right aperture to shoot a group of animals at, because there's not, but there's just still a little bit of softness in the one that's up here. So we do the same concept as we did with the eye, but we're just going to do it this time with a face. Okay, and it'd be a little bit hard to get the ears, but let's go ahead and select the whole face. I don't think we're going to use it, but let's go ahead and select that face. We will copy it, we will paste it, and then again, grab our move tool and move right over here. Okay. As I do that, I'm going to jump over to talk to you guys really quick. One quick thing, I see a lot of people joining in here. So if you're new, we've got a significant amount of more people since I first started this. But if you're new, this is my morning coffee Photoshop tips. And we're just going over some wildlife tips today. Number 2, if you would do me a humongous favor and share this. Obviously, there's only so many people that are watching right now, so I'd just appreciate any help in getting the word out. And I think that's it. That should be it. Yes, we'll say that's it. Okay, let's switch back over here. I thought I had something else to say, but I really can't remember. Oh, we got somebody joining in from Iceland. Nice. Okay, let's go switch back over. All right, so we got our, we just pasted a head over here, and what we're gonna do from there, I remember what I was gonna say now. I won't switch back to the other screen, because knowing me, I'll forget to change it. Also, guys, this also hinges on your questions. So I've got probably another 5 to 8 minutes worth of tips to show. Happy to hang around for a little bit longer than that and answer questions, but if there are no questions, then I usually end it. So if you got questions, start thinking of them and posting them into the comments there, and I'll do my best to answer what I can. Okay, so before I did the eraser tool to erase the excess away from that head that we just pasted on there, and what I'm going to do in this case is add a layer mask, and that's a little icon down here at the bottom of the layers panel. I'm going to add a layer mask to this layer. The layer mask is white, so we grab our brush tool, B for brush. We grab our brush tool, Command or Control plus to zoom in. And since the layer mask is white, we have to paint on it with the opposite color. Okay, so if the layer mask is white, then you would want to paint on it with black in order to affect the layer mask. So this is the non-destructive way. This will keep the non-destructive police away from me for now. And I would just go ahead and paint. Again, a soft edge brush is the key to this. You can't use a hard edge brush or it won't work. See, I'm mostly using the edges of the brush. I'm not actually taking the brush over the middle here. And just feathering that around and get rid of all that. Okay. And you can take a little bit of it in because all it's going to do is reveal the head that was below, which is just slightly soft. So if you ever do overpaint, you can just press the letter X, which flips black as your foreground color and flips it to white. And then you could go back in here and paint that back in. Okay. So this is if you are photographing groups of animals and you have one that happened to be a little bit closer than the other one. Obviously, this wouldn't work with people unless they were twins or triplets or quintuplets, but you get the idea. Most people would not know that that face was taken over here and put over on that face. And if you wanted to just do the eyes, which is what we did in that last example, then you could just reduce the opacity, because there are times where you might want to do that. You could just reduce the opacity and really, you know, really dial that in and get that into the right spot, bring the opacity back up, and then just paint away everything else but the eyes. So there are times where you might want to do both. In this case, I think swapping the face worked. I know the body is still a little bit soft, but everybody's eyes would forgive that, as long as we can see the eyes and the face being a little bit sharper there. Okay. So that's one. That's another one for you. Here's a really fun one. So a lot of people miss this tool when trying to remove distractions because content-aware fill is such a popular tool. A lot of people miss the patch tool, and the patch tool actually works really well, especially in places like this. So I want you to look at this photo behind the osprey here. We've got a bird back there, and we've got some lighting happening on the water in that reflection. If I did content aware, if I went up to edit and I went down here to the content aware option, it would probably do a pretty good job, but it would fill this with a manufactured area from another place. I find when you have lighting changes, the patch tool actually works better sometimes than content aware, and you should really try both, okay? You have to be familiar with both of these. But I find the patch tool respects lighting changes a little bit more. Okay, so let's press Command or Control J just to make a copy. That way we can see the before and after here. And I'm going to take the patch tool. Again, it's located inside of your spot healing brush, inside of that group right there, right in the middle. I'm going to take the patch tool, and it's a lasso to begin with. So I'm just going to go in here and lasso, and I'm just going to get close to the osprey. And then just give it a little bit of breathing room. You have to get the reflection as well. I'm just going to lasso around right there. Okay. And the way the patch tool works is you put your cursor in the middle and you drag and you drop and you move it somewhere else. And it gives you a preview. So you wouldn't want to do it where there's like, you know, the legs from the bird in there or the background or anything. You can kind of eyeball a little bit of where you're going to do it. And then you drop. As soon as you let go, you'll see it goes in there and it patches that whole space. And as I said before, it tends to respect lighting changes a little bit more, excuse me, than the content aware does. Okay. And then from here, you would deselect. Okay. And then the last thing would be to go up and see that little blotchy, splotchy spot right there. Patch tool wouldn't work very good there. What I would do is switch over to the clone stamp tool. That's the letter S is the keyboard shortcut for it. Okay, so I'd switch over to the clone stamp tool. That will allow me to do an exact change. So I would Option or Alt click, because with the clone stamp tool, you have to sample. Okay, so Option or Alt click over here to sample, and that little crosshair means I'm sampling. And then once I sample, I would move over here and I would start to fix that area. And then I might sample again, and then come over here and start to fix this area. And you will probably have to get a little bit smaller with your brush and probably get a little bit more fine-tuned as you get in closer. Okay, and then once I've gone in and done that, I'm kind of doing it really quick here. You spend some time in it. You should literally be able to get it almost perfect. But once you go in here and you get it looking pretty good, okay, and I think we've got it pretty darn close here. Once you get that edge looking pretty good, what you would do is then go back to your patch tool, all right, and then now you can get a little bit closer. Select that area you just cloned, because chances are it's going to still look a little splotchy, and then just repatch it. All right, and then again, you might have to work a little bit on that edge, maybe a harder edge brush with my clone stamp tool. Notice I was working with a very soft brush. I would bring that hardness up to about 80–90%, and then I should be able to go through here and firm up that edge like so. All right, and then again, you can go back and patch it if you needed to, but you can see we did a really good job when you look at the before and the after. I might spend a little bit more time patching and cloning. There's a couple small seams in there. They should be available, or they should be able to, you should be able to fix those up really quick. Bernie said, will this be available on YouTube? It sure will, Bernie. All right, and then I would still crop it. And that would be something to consider as well, guys. And a lot of times we do work we don't have to. I would still crop this photo and make sure before, at some point you crop it early on. I should have probably done that, but make sure you do that, because you could end up doing a lot of work. Like, remember down here there were some seams. Well, I would have cropped those out anyway. So there wouldn't really be any reason for me to do the work down there to fix any of those parts. So do as I say, don't do as I do. You should probably crop the photo fairly early on in this case, so you're not doing work to places in the photo that don't need it, okay? All right, let's do one more. Let's do one. Oh, I love this one, Piece Together. So these are some photos I took at a lake up near Gainesville, Florida, last week. So I've been taking a few boat tours. dvwildlife.com is the name. This gentleman Dick, he's an amazing photographer, knows how to get you into good spots, very respectful of the wildlife at the same time, and just you get some great shooting opportunities. So dvwildlife.com, and he's got boat tours up near Gainesville, Florida. So I took this last week, and we had seen this eagle perched, and we pulled up, and we're on a boat. So remember, we pull up, you get a little bit closer. You can't get that close, so I have a long lens on. But the boat's bobbing up and down. So my first shot I grab is this. And then by the time I kind of steady myself, my next shot is this. And I love the light on the side of the eagle's face right over here, okay? So when I switched, you can see he kind of turned his head, and the light isn't quite as interesting there. So I like him looking at me. I like the light on the side of the face. So here's what you do. And there has to be photos that are taken pretty close to each other, okay? So you've got to keep that in mind. You can't, I can't have taken this and take another one 10 minutes later. These were taken very, very close to each other. But what I would do is select all, and then copy, and then go to the other photo, and then paste it in. Okay, so now I have two layers. I've got the layer that's got the good background that I want, and then I've got this version up here at the top. And then I do the same thing that we did in another one, and that would be reduce the opacity a little bit, take your move tool, and then move the bird up, okay? Now, because the head position is different, the body position is also different. Okay, so you're going to have to line it up, because the body position is not going to match both. Again, this requires the right photo. You're not going to be able, don't get discouraged if you can't do this on every photo. It's not going to be possible on every photo. But what I would say is I'm lining up the front of the body here. Okay, we'll have a lot of leeway in what we can do with the rest of the body. But for me, the front of the body is the most important part here. And then I bring that opacity back up. Now we want to add a layer mask to this. So this time I'm going to go to the layer menu and I'm going to go down here to layer mask. And then what I'm going to choose is hide all. All right. Rather than reveal all, hide all, and watch what happens. It adds a layer mask that's already in black. If you remember before, we added a layer mask in white. This one adds it in black. And there's keyboard shortcuts that you can do it in the layers palette and everything, but we'll dive into telling you 10 different ways to do the same thing. Just for sake of our purposes here, we have very, very little of this photo that we want to show. So I wouldn't want to go in here and have to paint the whole photo away. So that's why I did hide all, because now all I have to do is take my brush tool, B for brush, right and left bracket key, make it larger and smaller. And then the layer mask is black, which means I have to paint on it with white. So I would go in here and paint like so. Okay. And then there's a little bit of, you can see in the background there, because I'm using a big soft edge brush, we're able to hide our tracks really well. You'll never, ever know. And that's the advantage of using that big soft edge brush. If you go too far like I did here, switch from white to black and you can hide it again. But that's why I use those big soft edge brushes, because it just hides your tracks. You can't see. You can't see anything that happened in the background. So you might have to do a little bit of work. It might not always be as easy as mine here. You might have to zoom in and use a little bit of a smaller brush, but you will get there. And then of course, I don't even have to worry about the rest of the photo because, as I said, I would go in here and I think a nice square crop, probably post this to Instagram at some point. But I would think a nice square crop, because Instagram favors square crops, would work really well on this one. Go in there and crop that out. All right, beautiful eagle. God, there's so many. There's juveniles, adults, everything along this lake, and it's just such a pretty scenery to watch these animals in action, man. It's crazy. So, all right, let's see. I'm about ready to wrap up here. So if you got any questions, get them in. I see one from Lucia. So let's see. Let's see what we say here. So back to the lion photo. What would be the easiest way to de-emphasize the twigs between the cubs, maybe bringing them a bit out of focus? Let's see here. So let's go back to this photo. I would do a lot of cloning and healing. And by the way, guys, keep in mind, I am not submitting to competitions. I personally don't. If you do, you should always look at the rules for a competition, because some of the things I'm doing here, in fact, let's venture to say if I'm doing it in Photoshop, if it's not contrast and saturation and very simple dodging and burning, let's venture to say it's probably not allowed in a wildlife contest. But you should always go look at the rules for the contest that you're submitting. Sorry, I got to say that because somebody's always going to come in and say later, you didn't mention contest. So keep in mind, most of this stuff would not be permissible. But anyway, so I would probably use the clone stamp tool, and I would go in and, you know, there's a couple of places, there's little twigs here and there, like there's one over here. So I would use the clone stamp tool, sample, and then start to paint. Make sure I'm using 100% there. Let's undo that for 1 second. Use a soft edge brush, sample, paint very, very, very small increments. Okay. So I would use a little bit of a combination of the clone stamp tool, a number of other tools. It'll take you time. You know, there's just too many twigs. You know, your photos, the photo, you know, I don't know. I always tell people nature is not perfect, so stop trying to make your photo absolutely perfect. But you know, you can go in here and you can clone out a couple of them. I don't know that I would try blurring them. I think I would, any of the really the ones that really got in the way, I would probably just try to clone out. I don't think blur would be going the right way. Let's see here. So it looks like we got just about all of them. Christy said I would patch before cropping as you have more real estate to choose from. Yeah, I mean, there's differing reasons to work with, and that's probably referring back to that one. Where were we? I forget which. There we go. It's probably referring back to this one. So you just have to do what's right for the photo and the workflow. But again, in this case here, I did patch before cropping, which was the right way to go. But then as I'm trying to really fix this, make sure you crop, because you don't want to spend your time fixing something that doesn't need to be fixed. All right, I think mostly just comments saying hello. Yep, mostly comments saying hello. So I think that about wraps us up for today. Let's see here. I don't see any more questions inside of there. So if you guys would do me a favor, I mentioned it in the beginning, but just share this. There's a little share button right there on YouTube. If you're in photography groups or anything like that, there's not a lot of wildlife editing tips out there. So if you are in a photography group of any sort, I bet you they would like some of these tips and tricks and things like that. So if you would share it, if you remember those. Got any questions? I'm usually pretty active on my YouTube comments here, so I realize some people will watch this later. This is Tuesday morning, 10 a.m. Eastern time. If you are not watching it between 10 and 10:30 Eastern time, you're not watching it live, which means your question won't get answered live. But if you got any questions or anything, I always see my YouTube comments, so you can post it in there if you think of something a little bit later. Okay? Guys, I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I'll talk to you again soon.